Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. Okay, I was just like looking around for like interesting book discussions versus book tags to do today, and I came across Adam at Memento Mori. He's one of my all-time favorite booktubers. We started at about the same time, and I think he is so dreamy, and he's like very much for me that guy that you see in the coffee shop, just like reading a book in the corner, and you're like, what is he reading? I mean, like, and the book makes him just 10 times cuter. So anyway, but he's so intellectual, and he like, I don't know. One of the things I love about him is that he totally dogs books that I like. Like, I don't know why I like that, but like, it's like he's not afraid to challenge like the mainstay, you know? Like when I was watching a video of his, I think it might actually be this video, and he's talking about To Kill a Mockingbird in there, and oh no, yeah, it is, because he's talking about Truman Capote's books. And then he talks about To Kill a Mockingbird, and which y'all know is like my favorite book. And he goes, I mean, it's okay. I'm like, ah, Lord. But I love that about him, that he's just so friggin' honest, right? So he did this tag that other people have done. Steve Donahue did it and changed it and called it something else. Somebody else did it, and so I'm just gonna tag Adam, and y'all can go watch his video. And it is called the Casual 10 Book Tag. And so basically what you do is you just pull 10 books off of your bookshelf and you talk about them. They can be books that you've never read before. I don't know why you would talk about that. I'm going to. But they can be books that you've read, books you love, books you hated, whatever. I just randomly went and picked 10 books, and I really tried to pick books that I haven't talked a lot about on my channel. Let me mix them up a little bit here. I mean, most of them I've talked about on here if I've read them since I started doing this. But if I have, since I started doing BookTube, but if I haven't, then I probably haven't talked about them. Please hold. So let's get to the first book. And the first book is a book, so if you want to do this, what you do is you just go to your bookshelf and pick 10 random books and talk about them. It's really easy, right? And the first book that I'm going to talk about is a book that I have wanted to read for literally 100 years. No, not that old. And it is only 151 pages. I put it into readathons all the time, and I just never read it. And that is Lucille Fletcher's $80 to Stanford. And this is the same author who wrote Sorry, Wrong Number, which they ended up making into a movie with Barbara Stanwyck. Did you guys ever see that movie? It's fantastic. Okay, so it's about an invalid who is in bed, and she can't leave, and so she overhears this phone conversation of this murder that's going to occur. It's very scary. You can watch it. I just found it on YouTube if you'd like to watch it. It's called Sorry, Wrong Number. But this is very similar to that. A high school English teacher, David Marks, drives a taxi at night to take his mind off the hit-and-run death of his young wife. One evening, a beautiful girl offers him $80 to drive her to Stamford, Connecticut, and back on condition that the trip remain a secret. He accepts, only to see the girl disappear into the dark grounds of a large estate near Stamford, remain there an hour, and then return without explanation. So begins a series of bizarre and fatal events that lead David Marks to the man he recognizes as his wife's killer. It just sounds so good. Plus, it's like all old. Look, and here it says, San Diego Book Exchange, right there. So oh, what year was this published in? Let's see if I can. I love older books. Oh, 1975, so that's not that old. Well, I was 3 years old when this book came out. All right, next book, and that is The Book of David, and it's by Anonymous. And this is like one of those Go Ask Alice books that like each one's about something different. Like Alice was about drugs, and then Nancy is like, I think about being pregnant. There's like Nancy's story and whatever. So this is The Book of David. Wednesday, November 6th. Why does this have to be so complicated? I don't even know how I feel inside right now or what I want. My shoulders are so tense that I can feel the knots foaming in my neck. I'm hunched over this notebook, bracing for an impact, like at any moment my whole life will come crashing down around me. I have to talk to John. Life should have been perfect. He had everything: a family, friends, a girlfriend, an undefeated football team, and half a dozen sports scholarships. He also had a secret that was tearing him from the inside. Then he met someone who could understand him in a secret like no one else could. But nothing stays secret forever. Read what happened in his own words. Keeping a secret was hard, but it was nothing compared to what happened when everyone else found out. Okay, so this book is fantastic, and I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's a coming out story. And I didn't know that when I bought it. I mean, I kind of assumed it, but I didn't know it. And it is really, for like one of these cheesy Anonymous books, it is really, really well done. And the ending is fantastic, and it's realistic. It's very, very realistic, I think. So, yeah, and it's a diary. So it reads like a diary, and I literally read this in like a day and a half. It's so good. Okay, the next book, and this is probably, oh, I don't know, like, honestly, he's probably my favorite author if I had to talk about collected works, and it is Stuart O'Nan, and this is Last Night at the Lobster, which is not one of my favorite of his books, but it's probably, every one of his books is so different, and I love all of his books because they are so different. So Stuart O'Nan is a writer, and the first book of his that I read was called Speed Queen. It was about a woman whose boyfriend had died. They were methamphetamine addicts, and she was on death row, accused of her boyfriend's death, but she didn't do it. And so she sold the rights of her story to Stephen King, and it was her telling the story back. It's fantastic if you can find it. I can't find it anywhere anymore. And then I read like 3 or 4 of his, and every book that he writes is completely different. And this one, if you can see, it's like a parking lot of a mall. They're all very sad, I will tell you that, but realistic, and I like that. Let's see. Perched on the far corner of a rundown New England mall, the Red Lobster hasn't been making its numbers and headquarters has pulled the plug. But manager Manny DeLeon still needs to navigate a tricky last shift just 4 days before Christmas and in the midst of a fierce blizzard. With a near mutinous staff and the final onslaught of hungry retirees, lunatics, and holiday office parties, all the while he's wondering how to handle the waitress he's still in love with, his pregnant girlfriend, and where to find the presents that will make everything better. Stuart O'Nan has been called the heart of the working class. And Last Night at the Lobster is a poignant yet redemptive look at what a man does when he discovers that his best might not be good enough. And it is so good, you guys. And I will tell you, it ends very sadly. I mean, not horrifically, but it's not the happiest of endings. And most of his books are that way. The Night Country is fantastic, which is about kids that are killed in a car accident. A Song to the Missing, which is about a family whose daughter goes missing, is fantastic. All of his books are so good. So please check out Stuart O'Nan. And he is very good friends with Stephen King, which I think is interesting. They wrote a short story novella together called The Face in the Crowd, and I have to say I didn't love it, but that doesn't mean that you won't. Okay, so the next book that I'm going to talk about is The Prince of Venice Beach by Blake Nelson. And I actually found this, it's interesting because it says author of Recovery Road, which they made into a TV show. So, oh my God, you guys, my nose is driving me crazy today, I apologize. I started watching that show and it was so cheesy, but and that's how I found it. It was like I was Googling something about it. So this is about a kid, I'm not going to read the back of these anymore. It's about a kid that lives in Venice Beach and he is homeless and like he's a runaway, but he's also a detective. It's cute, and it's like, but it's very real, and then he also lives in like this tree house part-time, and behind this woman's house, and she's kind of like an aging hippie, and so he does like little investigations for people. It's not like he's like, oh, Nate the Great or anything like that, but then he has like this girl that's very awkward that like he's kind of in love with, he's kind of not. You guys, it is fantastic. It is really good. I read it last summer. If you're going anywhere beachy, this is a good beach read, but I will tell you, like, I don't know what it is about all these books that I chose to pick, but they're all very sad. I like sad, real books. That's what I like. So, The Prince of Venice Beach by Blake Nelson. It's very good. I see this all the time at Half Price Books. I'm like, why is it here? It's so fantastic. Okay, the next book is, you know, like, so many people told me to read this, and I put it off, and I put it off, and I put it off, and I ended up listening to the audio version of it. So, I'm going to tell you, it's one of the finest audiobooks ever. I would really recommend listening to it as an audiobook, because it even more so feels like it's being told to you. I loved this book so much, and especially going through what I'm going through right now. So I don't know if you guys watch my vlog, but we found out that my dog Pee Pee has heart disease, and it's just been a really tough week as a result of that. But like when I think about this book and just like, and he's sitting right here with me. See, look, little Pee Pee. Right, Pee Pee? He says, Daddy, leave me alone. So anyway, he's always sitting right next to me in all my videos. But that would be The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein. So it's a book about this dog's retelling of his life. And knowing that it's his time to go on. Because he doesn't want to stand in the way of his master, I can't remember what he calls him in the book. But of his life anymore, and he knows that he's sick and he's getting older, and he doesn't want to make it difficult for him. The ending is so fantastic and so beautiful, you guys. Like, I mean, you know I cry in all my videos, but anyway, if you love dogs, if you love animals, and you have had pets, you have to read The Art of Racing in the Rain. I mean, it is hands down one of the greatest books I've ever read, period. The next book, is not a tearjerker, and that book is I'm Not Myself These Days by Josh Kilman Purcell. It is so fantastic. It is a memoir about a dominatrix slash drag queen who wears goldfish and these high heels of his. And it's so, I mean, you guys, it is so funny. It is so funny and so tragic at the same time. And it's very much stories about, like, the people, the Johns, like, do you know what a John is? Okay, so, like, a John is who, like, hires, the prostitute or whatever. And it's, like, there's this one part where he's just, like, walking on this guy's back in these high heels. You guys, it is so, like, hilarious, but, like, sad and tragic at the same part and very, very real. And it's really a story about addiction, too. And overcoming addiction, so it's just so good. And I don't think that Josh Kilmer Purcell has written anything since then. Refocused on his advertising career, winning numerous awards, and is now partner in a mid-sized creative advertising agency in Lower Manhattan. He lives on Manhattan's Upper East Side with his partner of 5 years. I mean, it's fantastic, you guys. It is so, so, so good. And please, 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 I laughed, I cried, I laughed again. I Am Not Myself These Days is tawdry and brilliantly witty, and I would definitely agree with that. So, I was looking to see if anybody gave a really great, so please go check this book out. It's one of my all-time, if you want a memoir, this is a great memoir. Okay, the next book I think I've only talked about ever in one video, and there is this whole mystery that goes along with this author, and that is Sarah, a novel by J.T. Leroy. And this was a bestseller, and there was also another bestseller called The Heart is Deceitful Among All Things, which they made a movie about. Now, J.T. Leroy was supposedly a 15-year-old boy that wrote these things, right? And, like, was, you know, like, gender neutrality and all that kind of stuff, and you didn't really know a whole lot about him, and he was like this whole mystery. Do you guys remember this story? It was a big deal. And then they exposed that J.T. Leroy was actually this woman that had worked in, like, the book industry. So it was like this whole trickery, and there was like, you guys, go Google it and find out the story about J.T. Leroy. But the books are still fantastic, but very, very weird. Very out there and very weird. So let me read you what Sarah is about. It's like a really endearing story. Cherry Vanilla, 12 years old with a penchant for short leather skirts and makeup, has one dream: to become the most famous lot lizard or truck stop whore in the business. With his blonde curls and his naked ambition, he is determined to be more woman than most and to match his idol, rival, and mother, Sarah. Adopting her name and sex, he heads off into the dangerous and fantastic worlds pocketed away in the West Virginia wilds. On his journey for fame, he meets with sinister pimps, a luck-restoring jackalope, superstitious prostitutes who take him for a saint, and a heart of bizarre and beautiful outcasts that makes up his unusual, heartbreaking world. J.T. Leroy was born in 1980, first published at the age of 16. He has since published articles and stories in Spin, Nerve, New York Press, Shout Magazine, and several anthologies. He lives in California, and that is all a lie because we find out later that it's a woman. Okay, this book is not, I will tell you that what I remember of it is, it's not super sexual. So it's really more about the characters and this, like, kid, like, a night or two, like, in his life outside of this, like, truck stop. It's very, very interesting. So I would definitely suggest this. Okay, the next book I, like, really don't talk a lot about on here. And I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this book, to be really honest with you, and that is Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan. So I had read an article about this, that David Levithan wrote this as a Valentine's Day story to his friends. And I was like, I want to read it. Everybody always puts it #1 at the top of their list, their favorite, like, gay, young adult novel, whatever. So I read it, and, like, I understood its premise, but, like, as a 45-year-old man, and he's about my age, I was like, you know what, like, it just didn't work for me. And, I have to say, this is my least favorite of David Levithan's novels. Like, seriously, my least favorite of his. The very next book of his that I read was Two Boys Kissing, and I loved it. It's so well done. It is absolutely 100% fantastic. So for me, I just was like, this isn't it. Like, I can't get into it. Excuse me, I didn't hate it. It was okay, and I read it in, like, one setting, but it just really wasn't that good. I don't know. Does anybody feel the same way as me? If you guys don't know anything about it, love is never easy, especially if you're Paul. He's a sophomore at high school like no other, and there are his friends. Infinite Darlene, the homecoming queen and star quarterback. John, Paul's best friend, who may not be his best friend anymore. Tony, his other best friend, who can't leave the house unless his parents think he's going on a date with a girl. Kyle, the ex-boyfriend who won't go away. Rip, the school bookie who sets the odds, and Noah, the boy, the one who changes everything. Love meets love, confusion meets clarity, and boy meets boy. And it's kind of like this whole story of, like, I don't know what, I did not love it, okay? That's just what I'm saying about it. I don't even remember how many stars I gave it. So if you guys have read this and you loved it, I mean, I know it helped a lot of people come out, but Two Boys Kissing for me was his finest work. I mean, I gave that like 5+++++, and you guys know I love David Levithan, so I just thought I would talk about that because it's interesting that my perspective is different than a lot of people's. Okay, the last one, or the next one I'm going to talk about is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, and I read this for a buddy reads with Grant at Mega Manchi Fan last year, and he is 17, I think he was 16 at the time, and he doesn't like to read young adult, and that's all I read, and so, well, almost exclusively. This month I've read a lot of non-young adult, but we decided to read this. We kind of met in the middle, and we both loved it, and I have to tell you, I became an instant Alexie Sherman fan, and, or Sherman Alexie fan. I'm such a big fan that I don't even know his name. I was thinking about this one time. I put this Facebook post. This was years ago. I hardly ever get on Facebook anymore. But I said something about my friend Brian, and he spelled his name B-R-I-A-N, and I put B-R-Y-A-N, and how much I loved him. He was one of my closest friends, and I misspelled his name. And my friend commented underneath it, and she goes, "You love him so much, you don't even know how he spells his name." Okay, so anyway. But I became an instant fan of this guy. And I mean, he's just it was so real. It was so real, you know? And just I could totally get into the world of all of this. And I want to read more. I definitely do, of Sherman Alexie. I just had to check and make sure I got his name right. And people have told me to read Smoke Signals and other things like that they made into a movie. There is a lot of them that I want to read in here, but anyway, there he is. Go check them out. If you've never read this book, it's literally any list that you go to that's the top 10 books for teenagers, it's the best. And the last book that I'm talking about is The Mysteries of Pittsburgh by Michael Chabon. Coming of age, sexuality, drinking, college, individualistic, artistic. It's the coolest book you will ever want to read out there. I loved it. 5 stars, 10 stars. It's amazing. So go read it. So yep, that's my collection. I'm almost out of time. The Mysteries of Pittsburgh by Michael Chabon. Go read these books. I love you guys. Bye.